Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today as we start to walk through the Code of Good Practice for this year. My name is Jen Krafusnica, and I am the manager of the National Council on Administrative Fellowships program. But in today's session, we're just going to go over the most recent changes to the code. We're going to review the implications of those changes to this upcoming cycle and understand kind of where these changes came from. So these changes were made with really careful consideration for not only the fellowship sites, but the graduate programs and the students involved in the yearly recruitment cycle. NCAF hosted several focus groups in December of 2022 with members of the NCAF community to determine the best changes for the cohort collectively. So just as kind of an overview or a reminder, the code really came out of the idea that we wanted to assist not only fellowship sites, but again, those graduate programs and students through the fellowship recruitment process in a fair and equitable manner. And it was developed really to provide that fair recruitment opportunity. And so in the code, you'll find several sections, but there's a section for each of these constituents. The graduate program section really outlines the way for graduate programs to support their students through this process. And then the fellowship site section really outlines those guidelines for fair recruitment, the important dates that we'll discuss in a bit, and any other important details that need to be outlined for the cycle. And then we have that student section that outlines not only the conduct, but the expectations and the professional manner in which we hope that our students are acting when it comes to the recruitment cycle. So now I'll go through some of the important dates, the changes, things like that. So obviously we typically have an open and close of the cycle. So for this year, 2023, cycle 1, the application will open on June 9th, and then the application will close September 29th. That is about a week sooner than we've done in previous years. Typically it's the 1st of October or the 7th of October, the first Friday, but we've moved that up a bit, really to allow our fellowship sites to make those decisions sooner. We're finding that it's harder and harder to find and get quality applicants with the amount of fellowship opportunities out there. And then you'll see that fellowship sites can begin phone interviews after September 18th. Again, allowing for that quicker decision-making from the fellowship site perspective, but as a caveat to this, after September 18th, they do need to be verified candidates that the fellowship sites are reaching out to and having those screenings or those phone interviews with. And then thinking about the offer period, that's what has changed the most over the course of our work groups and our focus sessions. So the offer period begins after the application closes. So application will close on September 29th. The offer period will begin on the 30th. And instead of a rolling offer period for the student or the applicant has 10 calendar days from receiving that offer to accept or decline the offer. So instead of the previous 3 or 4 weeks that we had for students to be able to think about offers and hold those offers, they have 10 calendar days from the date that they received that offer to either accept or decline. Now, if the student receives a second offer during that 10-day grace period, they have 24 hours to decide to either keep that offer or choose the new offer. If they do choose that new offer, the 10-day calendar period starts over again. So let's say they're on day 8 with their first offer and they get a second offer and they decide to choose the second offer to hold on to, essentially. That 10-day grace period starts over. But if we do have offers that are given on the 27th, that final day to extend offers, the applicant does have 24 hours to respond to that offer. So all offers do have to be in by the 27th of October. So essentially fellowship sites have from September 30th to October 27th to provide those offers out to applicants. Now, a couple additional things that we've collaborated on and thought about are some recommendations for this year as we think about best practices and thinking about how we can amplify the opportunities for our students. We've heard a lot of feedback from graduate programs and students around salary range and listing the benefits. Across other industries, across HR, it's really standard practice that we're moving towards to include a salary range. So in 2023, NCAF, we are strongly encouraging fellowship sites to include a salary range and a list of benefits on the NAFCAS page. We're not requiring that by any means. So your organization isn't required to put those things up on the NAFCAS page in order to participate in NAFCAS, but we're simply recommending that you include that based on the feedback that we received from students and graduate programs. Now that can be a salary range and then the list of benefits, 401k matching if you do that, insurance, moving stipends, things like that can all be included. And then also updating the language regarding our letters of recommendation in the NAFCAS portal. So we're going to continue with 3 letters of recommendation like we have for several years, but we're going to update the language to read a bit differently. So currently students are required to have at least 1 academic reference, 1 professional reference, and 1 other, which can be professional or academic. And we want to make sure that we're reminding students that the academic reference can be from any academic reference. It does not necessarily need to be the program director specific. Unless that fellowship site that they're applying to specifies that it needs to be from their program director of their graduate program, it could be from a faculty member or anyone else that is an academic reference. So I know I went through that quite quick, but I do want to leave some time to answer any questions. Happy to go through any of the slides again, but I'll open up the Q&A. Feel free to hop into the Q&A and ask any questions that you may have at this time. Not seeing any questions, but I want to give folks a few minutes in case there are any questions. Again, this will be recorded to share out with your fellows or graduate students that are interested in this upcoming cycle. But again, cycle will open June 9th and close September 29th. And then that biggest change, like I mentioned, is that offer period where we're providing the students a little less time to be able to do their offer acceptance. Yeah, happy to clarify the second offer. Let's go back to this slide here. So instead of, like I said, instead of that rolling deadline that we've had in the past, it's typically been a month that the student can hold the offer. We're moving that to 10 calendar days. So if a student has an offer and they're in that 10-day grace period or that 10-day offer holding period, and they receive that second offer, they have 24 hours from receiving that second offer to make a decision if they're going to keep the first offer or the second offer. And if they have to essentially accept or decline. And then if they decide to go with that second offer, then they can restart that 10-day grace period. And again, this is all also written in the Code of Good Practice itself, so you can find additional information in there. Other questions? That's a great question. What is the expected time frame for applications to be verified? Verification usually takes between 24 and 48 hours, but also a lot of that depends on the transcripts that the student has, depends on letters of recommendation that come through, but you can see kind of the progress in NAFCAS as they go through the application, and always touch base with NAFCAS customer service if there's some sort of lag, but typically NAFCAS has those verified between 24 and 48 hours. What will be the measures of success for these changes? That is a great question. I would say the change for this really came from fellowship sites losing a lot of candidates at the very end of the offer period or the end of the cycle. So a big success, hopefully, that we will find out of this is that more fellowship sites are finalizing their offers sooner, and they're not losing candidates right to other organizations or non-NAFCAS related fellowship sites. So hopefully we can track those. We'll be able to track those offers in Learning Bridge and be able to see if this 10 calendar day offer period essentially is positive. And then we'll also be able to survey students at the end of this cycle to see, again, what other implementations can we make, what other changes can we make in order to make the cycle not only work for fellowship sites, but for students as well, because it's important to have that give and take. The cutoff dates for the 2023 application, the application closes on the 29th of September. So we've moved that up about a week from what it was in previous years. So open June 9 and close September 29th. Some of our applicants felt the cost was prohibitive. Is there any plan for NAFCAS to provide an option for the program to provide application vouchers? That is a great question. So we are in communication with NAFCAS and Liaison, the folks that run this system, in order to implement some changes around that. Graduate programs do currently get 2 coupon codes to use for the cycle. So they hand those out either based on need, or they do a raffle with the students in their cohort to give those out. But we are working with Liaison to get something implemented to help with that cost factor. And as soon as we have more information on that, you'll receive emails, and we'll probably do a webinar just like this again. For the second offer and 10 calendar day reset, does this mean that the student is electing to not be considered for the first site? Right. So it's similar to last year, how you can't hold 2 offers at one time. So essentially they would be telling the first site that they are declining and moving to that second offer. I hope that answered your question. Other questions, or as always, I'm available by email. Also, you can schedule time with me if you want to review any site-specific questions that you may have. You can only hold an offer for 10 days now, correct? Right, that's absolutely correct. 10 days instead of that month-long holding period that we had last year. Yep. Like I said, you can schedule time with me. Happy to answer any site-specific or program-specific questions that you may have. If your students have questions or fellows have questions, I'm always available to answer those as needed. So just as a reminder, we do have our Code of Good Practice to sign off on. That's been sent in several of the newsletters this year and available on our website to sign off on. So you will get the link again after this webinar to be able to sign off on that. But hoping that this was helpful in order to understand those changes. And if you still have any remaining questions, happy to answer those or schedule some time. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. And like I said, this session is recorded and will be shared with all NCAF members once we get that all finalized. So thank you all.